Well, good morning, colleagues. Happy Monday to you. I guess we'll get underway. Nice to see everybody. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for the week ahead. Okay, so we'll come to order, and I'll say that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Okay, we'll move right to approval of the December 16, 2020 minutes, and I see the clerk raising his hand. No? I'll ask if there are any errors or omissions that anyone has found. Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Deputy Mayor and Seconder, Councillor White, and show of hands to approve the minutes, colleagues. And the minutes are approved. Very good. Any changes, Mr. Clerk, to the business today?
There are no additions or deletions for this agenda today.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the order of business then? Anyone at all? Councillor White and a seconder. I think I saw Councillor Young's hand first there. Sorry, Nancy. There we go. And can we then approve the order of business? Show of hands. Approved. Very good. Thank you. Any declarations of conflict of interest today, members? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, we'll jump down to number 10. Is there any correspondence today?
No correspondence has been received for items on this meeting's agenda today.
Okay, thank you. And how about petitions?
No petitions have been received by the clerk's office for the meeting today.
Okay, thank you very much. And I understand there are no pre-registered speakers for the public participation portion of the meeting. Is that correct? Very good. Any information items brought forward today? I don't believe so. No. Okay, this brings us to item 13.1, Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee. And will we be having a presentation on this today or just a discussion? No, just a discussion. Okay. So we'll have the request for a letter in their packet. A letter, the request is from the standing committee for the mayor to write a letter to the province regarding the definition of spouse. And the motion is in the agenda. And I'm just going to ask if, is there any, would you like to speak on this, CIA? Or?
I think I'll defer this to the solicitor to.
Okay. We're talking about the letter for the
it's
definition
a
of spouse.
Recommendation issue regarding the definition of spouse.
Yeah.
So the definition of spouse is a challenging issue, and it has been for some time. The reality is, though, that although it relates to municipal conflicts of interest, the definition of spouse is one that's set by the provincial legislature, and we have very little control over it. And Mayor, as you're aware, I think Council has a number of issues that they are seeking from the province at this time, and this may not be something that Council wants to add to that load and that pressure, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. There is a staff report in the packet. I'll just find it and put it in front of me. And we can see that the...
If I could.
Yeah, please, yeah, go ahead.
I will add to it. So what has come from Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee is a motion that they approved. The role of the Executive Standing Committee would be, if you approve that motion, to request a staff report on whether or not we should do that letter to the province with respect to the definition of spouse. As John mentioned, it is something that is not within our legislative mandate, and there are complexities with the definition of spouse in terms of, for instance, the Division of Matrimonial Property, the Income Tax Act. So in all likelihood, if you did direct us to come back with a staff report, our recommendation would disclose those issues, and the recommendation in all likelihood would be that we not proceed with a letter. The alternative that would be in the staff report would be that council could of course approve it and send the request down to the province. So the question today is, do you want us to go away and do that staff report to come back to the Executive Standing Committee of Council?
Deputy Mayor, please.
Did you want me to put the motion on the floor? Then I have questions. That's the best way to do it. Okay. Put the following motion on the floor. The Executive Standing Committee requests a staff report with respect to requesting that the mayor write a letter to the province of Nova Scotia's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to request the definition of spouse in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act be amended to adopt gender-neutral language. So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Cuddle. And is there any
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. I guess I'm trying to understand from the committee, and I see that Tracy's here, and I'm wondering if we could ask her to come forward. I'm just trying to understand. I didn't really see it in the report, but can you help us understand what the rationale, what they're looking to do, why they're bringing this forward? We hear the challenges, which are quite concerning to me, but what's the rationale, if you wouldn't mind? Thank you.
Do I press the button? Oh. You're good. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. My understanding is that this legislation is way behind our provincial legislation. So in 2004, the Same-Sex Marriage Act was put forward. The feds have made the change, but the province hasn't. So it was more of a, from my understanding from the committee, more of a nudge to the province that we haven't aligned with the federal legislation is kind of where they're going. And because we follow the provincial legislation, this is how we define spouse. Again, if I may, this is a big piece. It would require a lot of research on behalf of the team. The Women and Gender Equity Committee is always looking at how we can use more gender-neutral language, and I think it was from them for us to nudge the province on this.
Thank you for the explanation. You know, it's interesting. We all know what's going on in our neighbors down the south today. They're going to stake their focus for the next 4 years, and I think our focus here is, as we hear in many of our topics, stay in our lane focus. And so it's just concerning to me that we're stepping in this area. I understand that, and I appreciate that. But is this, as my dad would say, is this the hill you want to die on? And I'm not sure it is. If this is when we should be nudging our friends down the street. So anyhow, I'll wait to hear from the rest of my colleagues. But that's my concern. Thank you.
I see the Councillor Cuddle, but I'm just going to let the solicitor jump in.
I can add that, like the municipality, and where we have adopted a gender neutral language approach to all of our bylaws and policies, the provincial legislature has the same in terms of amendments and drafting of new legislation to go through. And so, over time, all legislation is going through these same lenses in terms of gender neutral. So it may be part of that. It's also, some issues with respect to the provincial government's views potentially around what a definition of a spouse is or is not. And so it's not clear where that all sits, but definitely would be reviewed at each time when legislature is opening up a piece of law or otherwise drafting new legislation.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor Cuddle, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily think that this is an issue of like a hill that we're going to die on. This isn't something that we're inventing. It's nothing new. It's not a new idea. What we're dealing with is working with outdated language that has been changed. Federally, it's been across the country. It's just here that we're still bound to operate by it based on, from what I understand, it's the provincial legislation. So, I I don't think it's a hill to die on. I think a friendly nudge isn't a bad thing. We're now, have a council where we had gender parity, and now we have majority women. Updating language in our documents, I think, is more of an imperative now that we're shining a light on than perhaps it's been done in the past. And I guess my question for the solicitor is, you said that we don't want to add this to an already large package and muddy the water, but really how much will this kind of add to that burden? I mean, it's a request for updated language where there's already precedent set in other provinces at the federal government. It's more like housekeeping than a major initiative into some new territory.
I think, Councillor, that leads back into what the report would determine as to what the state of it is actually in other provinces and here within Nova Scotia. When I talk about packages, there is the number of reports that are outstanding here coming back to council, but also the legislative requests that we have, some of which I think council may see as a different priority. So it does come down to what this council's focus is, and so it may be that you wish to add this to the mix or not. That's up to council.
So then I understand we have two options right now. We can proceed with the staff report, which doesn't necessarily mean, once we get the staff report back, we can decide if we want to send a letter or not, or we could vote right now to send the letter. Do I understand that correctly as kind of our two?
No, the decision today is whether or not to direct staff to do a report.
Report.
At which point executive would then make a decision whether to recommend to council or not if a report is requested.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think proceeding with a report would seem like the right thing to do, because at some point in time we're going to have to update this language, and I don't see any point in putting that off. Thank you.
So just to be clear, this language only is provincial. It does not, we do not operate under this other than individually councillors are accountable to the courts with respect to it. This has no municipal impact per se. It's personal to councillors only.
Thank you both. Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to have to ask John to clarify what you mean personal to councillors only, but so that's one question. Second is, could we not modify this motion today just to ask for the letter to be written, a very simple letter, just a nudge, not a complex staff report, just that we recognize that this needs to be updated and just a simple letter, not a big staff report? Could we do that? And then I have a question for Tracy, actually. Just, is the word spouse itself a problem, or referring to husband and wife and other words?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, my understanding is the concern is with the word spouse and the definition of spouse. So that we in Nova Scotia very clearly define spouse as either man and woman, and then there's a whole bunch of definitions, where others more broadly define spouse. So for example, in Ottawa, spouse means a person to whom the person is married or with whom the person is living in a conjugal relationship outside of marriage. So the problem is with the word spouse.
The definition of the word spouse,
definition
not
of
spouse
spouse.
itself.
Yeah.
Spouse is gender neutral in the way I
So
read it.
that's actually not correct. Under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, spouses means a person. It is not, it is already general neutral, who is married to the domestic partner or living in a conjugal relationship with a member, and includes a person of the same sex as a member, but does not include a person who is separated and living apart from a member. So that's the challenge, is not getting a report. I've just pulled this up. So it's already general neutral under the definition. So, we can, if executive council wishes, you can waive a requirement for a staff report and make the recommendation directly to council, in which case they'll need 2/3 to vote to ask the province to amend this legislation, which is already general neutral, to become general neutral, in which case we sort of end up potentially with some egg on our face asking them to do something that's already general neutral.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make sense.
That's
So,
part of the rationale for asking staff for staff reports, to dig into the sort of reasoning for it. So on that basis, I would suggest the motion is probably not worth pursuing, given my reading of this and the fact that it's already general neutral.
interesting. I think that if that's the case, it should be well communicated to the committee, because it's good work to be pointing out this sort of thing. So I guess that's my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Tracy. Tracy, I'm just wondering, is there already a preferred alternative that in mind? And is there a timeline?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, our understanding, of course, as staff, is that when a committee makes a motion, it does trigger a staff report. So they didn't give us an alternative or whatever. We would then go into, as John has said, doing all of that research and coming up with all the alternatives and all the clarifications and those pieces. As far as the timeline, the committee also didn't give me a timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor DeGilgammon, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So where it's not our words, because it's provincial legislation and it's their language, and hearing that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act is already general neutral, is there a way to defer this motion to bring it back to the Women and Equity Committee with more information so that they are more aware, and maybe somebody from legal counsel can be able to go and make a presentation in terms of it's already general neutral, what is the process, what could it involve, et cetera? Is there a way to defer and bring more information back to the committee?
It could be deferred, or you could simply refer it back to the committee for further consideration, in which case there would not be a need to bring it back here.
Right.
Deferral means you'd still have to deal with it, but if they're satisfied, after a discussion, that there's nothing further, or if they want to clarify what they're looking for, I would suggest simply refer it back to the committee for further deliberation, and that would be the end of it at this point.
Yeah. I think that would be very respectful to the committee, instead of voting it down, but to go back and give them more information. Thank you. So to refer back to the committee, please.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Now, I think the original motion was already moved and seconded, was it not? So it's alive and on the floor, so it needs to be dealt with first.
This
will deal with it.
If the matter doesn't return to executive within 6 months, then it will be deemed to have been tabled, and that'll be the end of it.
Okay, so I guess we're going to move right to the question, colleagues, and it's on the
Referral.
referral.
Yes.
Language matters. On the referral, that's right. So is that all in order, Mr. Clerk? Okay, then a show of hands, colleagues. All those in favor of the referring back to the committee? And that passes unanimously. If I may say, thank you, Tracy, and it was lovely to see you at Controlled Damage, the Viola Desmond play at Neptune earlier. Excellent. Good show. Thank you. We're moving down the agenda into item 15, which is in camera. Could I have a motion to go in camera, please? I see Councillor White and a seconder, Councillor DeGilgammon. Those in favor, show of hands. Okay, we're in camera. And Mr. Clerk, do we need to pause for anything? Okay, we're just going to pause here to make sure we're truly in camera. Okay, colleagues, we are back in open session, and I'm going to be looking for motions to ratify the in-camera motions, beginning with item 15.1, and Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion is that the Executive Standing Committee, number one, adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential report dated January 16th, 2025. And number two, direct the private and confidential report dated January 16th, 2025 be maintained private and confidential.
Very good. All those in favor? Oh, second by Councillor Hartling. All those in favor? And okay, it looks unanimous. We'll move on to 15.2, and Deputy Mayor, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put the following motion on the floor that the Executive Standing Committee, one, adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential report dated January 13, 2025, as amended, and two, direct the private and confidential report dated January 13, 2025 be maintained private and confidential. So moved.
And that's seconded by Councillor Deagle Gammon. Colleagues, all those in favor, show of hands. And that passes. And we'll move on to 15.3, and I will turn to Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Executive Standing Committee adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential report dated January 16th, 2025, and direct that the private and confidential report dated 16 January 2025 be maintained private and confidential.
And a seconder? I see Councillor Young. All those in favor? Show of hands, and that passes. Thank you very much. Colleagues, any notices of motion? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, I think I saw Kathy's hand up there first. Thank you very much. Have a great day.